Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries. This is maybe an unlikely one. Anyway, hope you're doing well. No complaints. Here, hope there are none there. Um, so it may not sound like the most fascinating show in the world, but actually it kind of is pretty fascinating, I think. So I know I've been keeping you guys way too long, so let me just dive into it for you. It was previewed as, oh God, all the cars and all the stories that come with all the cars that I've had. Uh, I'm going to try and run down this chronologically as best I can, because there are my own cars and then there were cars that I had appropriated. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, um, I big surprise, I've always been into cars. I mean, I've always been like really into cars. People don't know that, but I can see a car usually kind of, I don't know, as far back as the 30s maybe. And I can usually guess within a margin of a 2 to 3 year error on pinpointing the year of the car, no matter what the car. So I've been, my dad always collected cars. He had Buick Rivieras and 3 different Mustangs and all this stuff. So it kind of rubbed off on me. But I have a series of cars that were pretty wild for a teenager. Now, we are, believe it or not, covering 16 years of age to 19 years of age on the legitimate cars. On the appropriated cars, we're talking 14. So the other cars, there's about 8 other cars, and they are legitimate cars. But this is all between 16 and 19, and then we'll get to 14. Okay, because there was really no legitimate driving at 14, obviously. This is not like, rural South Dakota. Okay, so first car was a 68 Camaro. My dad thought he was doing the most wonderful thing in the world, and he went out and he got this gorgeous, like, 1968 royal blue metallic Camaro, which was unfriggin' believable. But it had, excuse me, gangster steering wheel, which was about like this big, right? Okay, so right off the bat, there was like not going to be Sean's car. But he was so cute. He washed it in front of the house, and he was so proud and whatever. Well, second or third day, it broke down, and it was like, God knows, it was the 68 Camaro. So that was out. Nice, great for a couple of days. And my dad could technically say he bought me my first car. So then my stepfather dragged me out to the airport to some lot to, get me a practical car, as he is such a practical, pragmatic monster. So he brings me out, plus he's always got like $700,000, money clip in his slacks with his Paco Rabanne cologne. Anyway, so I get my car. Now, all the troublemaking is in this car, okay? I mean, not in this car, but this is the car I owned during those years, those nefarious years. This was my car, legitimate car, not cars that I was borrowing. So this was a Fiat 124. Okay, so let's first go to the 68 Camaro that was a complete failure for my poor father. This is the gorgeous car that failed miserably. Actually would have been nice. Okay, so now we're at the Fiat. This was a Fiat 124, I don't know, 70s, late, it wasn't that old. And that would be this car. And that's my Fiat. Okay, so that's what got me in trouble. Like, I'm blaming on a car. Let's see. Oh my God, cars. Okay, I'm looking through a whole bunch of them. So this was a putt-putt car. I had learned to drive literally on a manual. My dear friend, Beth, both had a VW manual, and her mom had a VW manual. I basically grinded both of them to death learning how to drive. So I learned how to drive on a manual. So manuals actually are second nature to me. I actually prefer manual, but the manual that I just had, somebody swerved me off and it got wrecked, and now we're struggling through this car that we just got. So that was all the bad stuff. So connect all the bad stuff to the Fiat and just take out the borrowed cars. Okay, so from the Fiat, then we're going into my legitimate years. I get a license, okay? So I get my license, and of course I have the coolest car on campus, okay? You know, I wasn't out to be the coolest guy, I just kind of was. Or at least a maverick at that school in terms of being alternative or whatever you want. So from the Fiat, I went out and got, with my mom's help, since she knew this British mechanic. She always knew these like foreign mechanics that got these wild cars. My mother? Anyway. Okay, so through this fabulous guy, I get this car when I'm 16 after that Fiat period. Okay, so the Fiat was technically when I was 16, but it's very complicated. The Fiat was actually technically the 16-year-old car, like 15 and a half, you're allowed to have your permit, and it was very loosey-goosey then, you know, somebody should be in the car or whatever. So Fiat was kind of 15. We'll get into 14. So 16, legitimate, right? Okay, so the Fiat, a little bit of the Fiat, I burn it out because I don't put water in the thing for a week, and it's a thermal engine, so that's dead. So we, through this mechanic, we get this, I would say, oh God, 71 Rover. Now these used to be police cars. This is not the 80s Rover police cars, the kind of boxy, but these look like James Bond cars, but they actually used to be used as cop cars in the UK. Now mine had speakers here behind my driver's headrest and speakers on the other passenger headrest. And this is what it looked like. So that's pretty amazing. It was my dream car. I drove down Sunset Boulevard with my girlfriends. I'm like, oh my God, I'm driving my dream car down Sunset Boulevard, and we pull into Tiny Nailers, which is, I wish I could bring that up, because that's a classic place. I'll do a show on Tiny Nailers. You Google it, Tiny Nailers Hollywood, like classic, or you know, they tore it down, but unbelievable drive-in, roller skate, you know, waitresses, I'm sorry. And so I get to take it there with my girlfriend, but I run out of gas on the way home. Luckily, the Rover comes with a, it comes with another tank that you release, and gas goes into the empty tank. So it's a backup. So I actually got to use it that special night, pulled it, and it released the backup tank. So now from that, I decided that having one Rover wasn't enough. So I got another Rover because it had, it was, I don't know, it wasn't as showy, and it had a sunroof. So this was my other amazing car. Shortly after Silver Rover, this is what I drove, which is a green Rover, same year, 1971, but it was 4-screen, kind of like this, with a sunroof. Now that, you know, the silver and the green Rovers were wild for a 16, 17-year-old to be driving. These cars kind of took me through the rest of my high school. The Green Rover, this one actually was, I think I graduated with that car. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on in those two Rovers, 16 through 18, really, both those cars. Very popular on campus and really sharp. Except when you got like Suicide Bend on Sunset Boulevard in the middle of the night. I remember this drunk guy is following me in his car, and he's screaming at me, "Turn off your high beams." Well, you idiot. The foreign cars come with double headlights on the front. They just get brighter when you turn on. No, he was convinced that I had my high beams on. He was practically driving me off the road over it. But anyway, so, but there was unusual, people had never seen them. They were great. So then I'm finished with high school. So then I have to, well, okay. When should we get in? Oh, okay. Well, my dad in between, like buying these cars or being near his house on the east side of Hollywood, or if the car was in the shop, or just for recreation. He had two classics that I would drive, that I loved. This one in particular, buzzing around Hollywood in this. It was a little more beat up than this, but it was convertible, except the ragtop didn't work. So if it was raining, you were kind of screwed. Anyway, this was his MG. I would say this was a 71 MG Sport Coupe. And that's what I buzzed around Hollywood in, which was super fun. Actually, one of the really more enjoyable rides around town. But then I was a little bit of a nutcase. Now, the other car that my dad let me drive, this is going to surprise you because it's a 1949 Plymouth. Now, again, manual comes second nature to me, and then I can also drive behind the wheel manual. So because, long story, but in a Dodge truck, when I was very young, I learned to drive my stepmom's truck, which was a behind the wheel stick, because she drove it for her catering business. And so because I could drive that car, I could drive this Plymouth because it was a behind the wheel stick. Very kind of, if you drive stick, it's, it's easy, or not easy, but if you don't know how to drive manual, do not attempt a behind the wheel stick. It's just, as you're driving, it's like this. You've probably seen it in old movies. Okay, so this is what I drove, the 49 Plymouth, just for recreation. Okay, so then I'm 19. I'm graduated high school. Then it's time to get nice, new, whatever. I'm done with collecting, I guess, nice cars, unfortunately or fortunately. So I get a decked out Toyota Supra black with red leather interior. So I'm pretty stoked. It was new-ish, and I'm freshly 18, and yeah, 18, easy. And that one, I was babysitting, good Christ, Freudian slip. I was house sitting for my dad in Hollywood at his fab, wild, weird old house on Ivar Place. And of course, I hear what I think is like a trash can falling over in the middle of the night. Well, they stole my new Supra. So then I'm screwed because, it was the first time I financed a car, and I just said, look, screw you, come after me, I'm getting a new car. Actually financed another one. So this was nothing special, but when I lost the Supra, I got something a little more attractive than that Celica, Toyota Celica. Nicer than this, actually, more sporty, curved with the pop-up, headlights. Now, this was a car that I had during, I would say, some of the most difficult times of my life, because now we're going into 88. So 18, 19, I'm engaged by 19. I had already lost the Supra, and now I had this Celica, and I'm married. But this is my car. Again, it was a manual because I'm just so much more comfortable in stick shifts. And this Celica now, after all these collecting from the 49 Plymouth all the way to the Rovers and all the classics I owned, was the car that I was getting into trouble with a little bit. Again, we've discussed that over a couple of shows previous to this when I met Tim, and we know that whole story. So this was really the Celica I had when my life came to a screeching halt, and cars didn't matter. I could be on a rickshaw for all I knew at that time. But I wasn't. I was in a Celica. So that I met my Tim in a parking lot in that Celica, and he pulled up in a Vespa. Anyway, whatever, it was cute. So then, okay, so we've covered through 19, right? Okay, so now we're into the appropriated cars. I'm going to be polite and look, it was not Grand Theft Auto. It was like heavy borrowing. These borrowed vehicles were usually mothers of friends or something. It was all in the family, sort of. Now, the problem with the appropriated vehicles on the list of all the pretty vehicles is that these were 14-year-old period. So all these fancy cars I just showed you were legitimate, you know, even the 49 Plymouth, okay? But the ones I'm going to show you now were borrowed cars when I was 14. So these were not cars that I was driving legitimately. These were other cars. Okay, so let's start with the blue Mazda station wagon. Okay, I think I was 14 and a half. Here's the brown Mazda, again a station wagon, within the family, kind of, sorta. Okay, so now here's the blue Dodge van, I would guess at 73. So this is this. I used to like to, it was just good for going downtown because it was a scrappy neighborhood. So it blended. And then I think is that the final one? Hold on, let me make, yes, this is the final one, I hope. And this is the blood red, or ruby red, I should say, 1980 Jaguar. And that's that pretty car. It was really fun on the 10 freeway at 14. And this one I borrowed twice. So anyway, that's the slideshow for the cars. Both owned legitimately, pretty cool ones. Kind of that little one where I got into trouble was my first. And then, of course, there were the 4 borrowed cars, but they were all 14. So we covered 16 to 19, then we jumped back to 14. Okay, I'm going to let you go. I've been giving you 16, 17, 18-minute shows. I am sorry. I don't know how long this one went, but I'm jealous. I mean, I'm not jealous. I am, what was I going to say? I want to hoard you guys, you know, I crave you guys, and not in a weird way. But yeah, you're my respite. So thank you for sharing my stories with me, as always. And as unusual and sporadic as they are, thank you for being with me every night. And of course, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.